Welcome to the Challenge Chronicles. I'm Devin Jordan. I'm with Trace Armstrong and Rob McIntyre. We are here to talk about the Challenge Double Agents, Episode 9. Quick housekeeping. You can subscribe to us on iTunes if you want to listen to us for podcasts, Spotify, everywhere. I don't know. Everywhere you listen to podcasts, we should be. We're on YouTube, on our own channel, and then Pat Mayo's channel as well. You can reach us at thechallengechronicles@gmail.com if you want to send us any listener email questions. We have one for today. You can buy your Challenge Chronicles paraphernalia at bigdubdiesel.com, dubbed with 2 B's. Get your own shirts. And that's about it. As far as we've let everyone down again. There was an issue that came up that left us unable to record our episode on the much awaited OG season. We have another time set to record this weekend. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, that episode will be out early next week. Sorry for anyone that's waiting on this, but we should have that out soon. And with that, what did we think of this episode?
I thought it was a little slow. Yeah, I thought it was slow.
I thought this one was pretty good. You guys didn't like this one?
So there was a lot of Amber B.
I didn't have a problem with that, but go ahead, Devin.
They spent a ton of time on the challenge.
Well, that's what they always do with these trivia missions. Trivia missions always take a while.
They could have zipped through this, I feel like.
Well, but like, let's hash out the trivia stuff now. So
yeah, I have a few notes on the trivia.
You can't do true and false with trivia. You've got to give them open forum to give answers.
It's definitely funnier that way.
Yeah, what are we doing? And they've made the trivias lately they're much more flash than substance in these trivia missions, which I really haven't liked. Like, it's a lot about, like, they're tied to a rocket that gets shot in the air, or they're, like, hanging on to they're, like, whole, I don't know. It becomes more about how they're falling instead of them giving goofy answers, which is, we can see them falling in, like, any of these missions. I want to hear, Muhammad Gandhi as Muhammad Ali. That's what the trivia.
I want to hear Johnny Bananas say that the official language of Australia is Dutch.
Exactly. That's what we need.
All right. So am I missing something? Or was the way that they decided the winner of this completely idiotic? Because I think that they said that the winner of this is the person that answers the most questions correctly, right? And
was up there the longest, which is an amorphous criteria.
And what those are dependent on, to a large extent, are how well the other people in your
I was exactly thinking this.
Outside,
yes,
outside of how you do. So you can win, and if you're up there with a bunch of people that are terrible at trivia, it doesn't matter, because you just won more quickly than the other people.
Why won't they just do the combined, like, best performers from the two partners?
Because that's what an intelligent person would do. That's why. That's why they did not do that.
Like, Amber B's on this power trip, but, like, homie, she didn't even, like, was the one who won the mission for her team. We could have had anybody up there. We could have had, somebody just go up there and fall down. They would have won still.
Dude, I thought it was really funny when Kyle was just hanging on at the very end for an extended period of time.
It did seem hard to hang on. It did seem hard once it got, like, pretty wide out there to hang on like that.
He was screaming like Marv in Home Alone when he gets electrocuted.
Oh, I was very upset that Burger King apparently is back as a sponsor, and P3 had not taken their spot.
Dude.
Well, Johnny's not on the season, and he's their main sponsor, so why would they?
Wow.
So Tyson,
how many Whoppers do you think Darrell has actually eaten in his life?
He's got kids, man, more than you'd think by now.
I don't know. With the shape he's in, though, you think he's eating Whoppers?
I mean, if you have a Whopper once a week, or you have a burger or junk food once a week, that's not going to hurt your workouts if you eat clean the rest of the time.
Wow.
Correct. Yeah, and I mean, some people just have better genetics than others.
Like my metabolism, Rob, up until like 4 years ago was phenomenal. I could barely work out, eat whatever I wanted, and I stayed right at about 190, 195. And then I hit around 31, and all of a sudden I put on 40 pounds. So it's like you get to a certain point and your metabolism just stopped working.
Terrell's over 40. He can't be eating Whoppers if he's on the
But
challenge.
here's the thing, though. If he's like Devin's saying, one of those people, like if you stay in really good shape and you stay in really good shape for a long time, your metabolism is much better and more efficient than other people's are, and you can burn that stuff off way easier. So
a lot of it's
anyway.
Yeah, a lot of it's
I don't know
genetic.
if I've ever eaten a Whopper.
I think I had one when last time I went to Las Vegas or stayed in Las Vegas, like maybe a decade ago. I think that's the last time I had a Whopper. That's the last time I had Burger King.
Yeah, it's been at least 6 or 7 years for me. I think I was on a road trip somewhere. I know why I swore it off initially, because of the just horrendous service they have. Every Burger King
Really?
I go to are the people that got fired from McDonald's for being terrible.
What?
So
they got 5K for Burger King, or is it 5K to Burger King?
5K from Burger
5K.
King.
Oh, much better than 5K to Burger King.
Yeah, and then they got the free Whoppers for life, which, even if Darrell's not eating them, I guarantee you his kids are, man.
Yeah, I guess his kids can eat off that too.
This type of challenge, Tyson talked about this in relation to Survivor, but this is exactly why when you fill out the form before the season starts and they ask you for your height, you list a lower height than you actually are to get advantages in challenges like this. Or something. Like, give yourself a little bit of an edge, because in a challenge like this, that's definitely material. You're also, people with larger wingspans have a really big advantage in this.
You get short clothes then if you're on the challenge, though, and you try to pull that off.
Do what?
Get short clothes. Like, I think you use that for like clothing sizes too.
No, I mean, it's not going to matter that much.
I wouldn't do that, because if you get a size that's too small, you're going to look like a doofus on TV the whole season.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm like, Dio's height and I was Paulie's height, like that could end up pretty bad for me. I'm walking around like Winnie the Pooh with a shirt that goes down to my stomach.
That would be kind of funny to see that.
If you do it by 2 inches, it's not going to change like the size of clothing that you wear.
Yeah.
Well,
that's really funny. Yeah, so we've already kind of said what I felt about that. I love the idiotic answer. So true false really does kind of take away from some of the comedy.
Not a good move.
Not a good move. The problem that I had with this episode is the cast just didn't give them a whole lot to work with in this block of time they showed. We've had the toxic Teresa storyline going for a couple episodes now. So it felt like I just watched this exact episode with a different challenge, and then it just so happened that she went into elimination.
Yeah. It was very focused too. Like, it felt like it was like Amber B, Gabby, and then a little bit of Teresa screen time, and that was about it.
Yep. And Corey by proxy got that, because if you're Corey's partner, you go home the next episode. So you got to keep your eye on that.
It is crazy. Anissa's line at the episode killed me when she was saying, "It used to be you stand next to me, got pregnant. Now you stand next to me, just get eliminated."
That was pretty great. Nam had a great line in the episode too, where somebody threw a hit on him, and he goes, "You motherfucker!" It bleeped it out. I actually legit laughed out loud when that happened. But no, the problem with this episode to me is, since nothing really happened, they stretched the story way too long. Like, the amount of time that we were in the club listening to the quote unquote strategy conversations, nothing that we didn't already know was talked about. Like, literally. So if this was a 60-minute episode, I feel like I would be completely okay with it. Okay, it was just an average episode. With it being 90 minutes, this one, it was a little hard for me to get through. Like, I watched it, I was entertained, but is it a great episode? Not so much.
These past episodes, I definitely do. Oh, go ahead.
I kind of like this episode. I'll stick up for this episode, and I feel like normally I'm on the other side of you guys on whether or not we found the episode enjoyable. I think there was some good stuff in the bubble night, right? Because that's when Amber B and Casey decide that if it's something that Casey thinks that she can beat Teresa in elimination, she'll step up. That's when Amber B and Gabby kind of come together, and Amber B tells Gabby that she doesn't necessarily want her to be in an elimination. So I don't know. Like, I feel like how much of this do you think is that you actually sat through commercials in this? And I can't even imagine what watching the show with
it does really hurt the pacing when you're just sitting there watching it live through commercials. That might be what a decent amount of it is. I think
especially towards the end of the episode.
I think though too, I prefer episodes that hit on a lot of different characters. Like I like when it feels like more so the entire house is involved in what's going on. Whereas with this episode, like they really telegraphed the narrative in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Like I knew Teresa was going home within the first 10 minutes.
Like it never it was like Teresa or Gabby, and then it really focused in on Teresa. Like it didn't. I don't know. It felt very, very like they put it right out in front of you with this one. There was little mystery.
So for the all right, what do we want to talk about next? Do we want to talk about the elimination? Do we want to talk about I guess one more thing that I want to say about the challenge is that there was like quite a bit of inequity when it came to the difficulty of the questions for each of the competitors.
Definitely, yeah.
Like LeBron James went to North Carolina, or like the one Lolo got was actually kind of hard. She got one easy one that she missed, and she got one hard one that she missed.
The difficult one was it down. Yeah, like go ahead.
The difficult one is somewhere the only country that touches two continents. Yeah, and
the question was is Russia the only country that touches two continents? And the answer she gave was true, and that is false. Russia is only a European country.
No,
Turkey,
Russia's Asian too.
No, it's not. Siberia is part of Asia, but it's not technically part of Russia. Not technically.
I think this is.
What's the question?
What are we doing here?
Chase, what did you say? Russia is
the question. The question was, is Russia the only country that
Chase, Russia is part of Asia? Russia and Turkey are both stretched European.
Okay, I thought Russia legitimately was only in Europe.
Russia's just real big, and Siberia's got like no people in it.
Okay, got it. So so when she said true, the answer being false was like, hey, Turkey is the second country that does it, which I knew Turkey. I assumed that meant that Russia did not. So I would have answered the question wrong, but on false pretenses.
I mean, I had no idea about Turkey. Like I feel like that's really like nitpicky. I think for that question to be acceptable, I think it would have to come down to kind of what you thought, whether or not Russia actually touched two continents. You know what I mean? As opposed to,
I got schooled pretty hard in geography when I was the runner-up in the elementary school geography bee when I was in fourth grade, about all the like fifth up through middle school.
So would you have gotten that one?
I would have gotten that one.
You knew Turkey. You knew Turkey touched two continents. Oh my God!
I knew touched two continents.
The only reason I knew it is because my in-laws fly through Turkey all the time when they come back to the United States. And that's one of like the catches is like, hey, part of Turkey is in Asia and part of it is in Europe. It's like, oh, cool.
I played a lot of Civilization and a lot of FIFA World Cup when I was younger. So I was very aware of where these countries were.
Who thought that TJ gave Cam too much rope before she got DQ'd? Because I know Mosley did.
Too much rope.
I think I was honestly, as soon as they showed us that, I knew like she was going to get DQ'd for it because that happens all the time and they just never show it.
Yeah.
So I think he did give her too much rope. I also think that if you ever ask cast members ever talk about this stuff, it happens all the time. They just don't show it. One thing though I did think was noticeable too. I think Darrell really won because he seemed so terrified when he came up there that nobody wanted to give him like X's until they got later on into the mission. I think that's really like a pro move. Just look as terrified as possible from the heights, and people will feel bad for you and not give you X's.
You know how? So Darrell was really critical of Amber B this episode for not going in and getting a call.
Well,
I think Amber B made I think Amber B made the right call, right? I mean, she just got rid of a really strong player.
I think Teresa would have beaten her in that.
Well, she would have beaten her in that, definitely. Or probably. Let's say probably. And then she also got one of her closest alliance members a skull. So I don't think that that's necessarily.
I mean, I would say that she's picking the wrong group to run with. I think she should be running with the itty bitty committee because I think Casey is a decent favorite against her in a final, as are like other people that are
Totally.
involved with that group. Whereas if
But
she's running with like Amber, M, and Gabby.
So I think what she needs to do is try and just figure out how she's going to get to the end of the final, because what is she going to be able to do to get any of those people in the itty bitty committee into a final? Like how is she going to do that? None of those.
I mean, if you put
the only way that she'd be able to do it is if she puts them in against each other and one of them wins, and I don't think any of them are going to want to do that.
Well, like, okay, let's say if you put Cam in against, I'm just speaking hypothetically here. If you put Cam in against Casey, and then whoever wins that, you put in against Lolo. Whoever wins that, you put in against Anissa.
What are you saying?
Just keep throwing the winner of these matchups in of the people who are good, and then eventually there's like only one of them left.
It's not going to happen because by and large, most of the time, the people who win.
Well, nobody seems to ever want to go into any of these things. Like any of these elimination deliberations, nobody ever wants to go in.
The people who win the mission are one of the stronger competitors, and that's why the power flows this way.
That's fair. How much is that borne out this season, though?
Let's look. I think like historically that definitely bears out. So
yeah, we have. I mean, you get like missions like this one though, like are just relatively random.
Fessy, Leroy Casey, Devin Torrey,
Big T. I mean, for the most part,
Teresa. Like we haven't had a super weak competitor win this season, I would say, because the one that Big T and CT won.
Josh hasn't won.
Well, I mean.
Oh, you're talking like a daily challenge. Got it.
Yeah, because even the one that Big T and CT won, it was pretty much all CT. Had nothing to do with Big T except for the fact that she probably weighs a little bit less than some of the other women.
You can tag on with this, which would help with that. I mean, that is something that definitely sounds better in theory, but I do think you can at least knock out a few of them that way.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, because then at some point, them or someone that they're close with wins, and then you're screwed.
Well, screwed in what way? You could put in elimination. You have to go into elimination.
Yeah, but you could get repeatedly thrown in or something, or you could, or even worse, you could not get thrown in ever, right? Or when you do get thrown in, you get thrown in against a very strong competitor. It just depends. At that point, you just don't have a lot going in your direction. And I think historically, that's why in team seasons or like in much older seasons of the show, that's why Johnny, Evan, and Kenny did so well.
I think each of these games are a very different animal. Like in a team season, you're much less likely to see good competitors go in because there's no skulls, and then you can also why are you going to put your good players in if you're the people controlling the vote? And then other seasons, just the way things have gone, generally speaking, people tend to favor just banding the better players together and putting in the weaker players, just kind of having a chain of command going down that way.
Exactly. And so I think historically over the course of the show, that's why you see the stronger players make it to the end, because they incentivize the people who win the mission are incentivized to win the mission so that they can gain some sort of power. And that's kind of how you see it facilitated.
The one thing that I have thought about, though, while you guys were talking was maybe I sort of agree that Darrell has a good point, too, though. Like, I still think she would have gone home if she went against Teresa in that elimination. I would say that Teresa had a much better chance of beating Amber. But with Casey, the moment I heard it was Casey, I was like, Teresa's going home. Not because Teresa's a bad competitor. Casey's just...
That's just one of those ones where it's like, who's got...
It was weight. It turned into weight and strength. And even though Teresa is in amazing shape, like Casey just looks stronger just on appearances. And so that really bared itself out. Because she was... So, I mean,
she definitely does.
She definitely outweighed her. And so this is a challenge where weight and momentum really help you. And when she took off running and it jerked Teresa, like Teresa fell back like 2 feet. I was like, oh, that's over. But the thing that Darrell said, sorry, go ahead.
No, she completely skunked her. She went 3-0. Like this wasn't even close. when Amber B first approached Casey in the Bubble night, and Amber B asked her how she would feel about going against Teresa, Casey seemed a little bit apprehensive, but then in the confessional, she said that she knows that she can beat any woman in this house. I also thought it was interesting that
that could have been after the elimination.
It was most definitely after the elimination.
It's also interesting that I don't know. I think it was Nani that said the only people in the house, the only women in the house that could beat Teresa in elimination were Lolo and Casey.
I don't know. Nani,
so it's interesting to see
Nani stole my notes going into this season, pumping up Teresa as the best one in the final.
And it's interesting. Well, I think that she was just using that as fuel to.
I mean, look, I would have
thrown in.
Well, I don't think it's a baseless claim.
I don't know.
I mean, it was politically
final of anybody in the house.
It was definitely politically manipulated, but she also was telling the truth. I mean, other than Lolo and Casey, it's hard for me to see someone beating Teresa.
She's been the best in a final of anybody in the house. I don't think there's much argument against that.
I don't know what compared to Casey.
Yeah, she was much better in the XS2 final than Casey was in the Total Madness final.
You're dealing with a really small sample here. She's only been in one,
and then sample, but this is all small samples.
No, that's bullshit. Casey's only been on one season before this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying
Teresa's been on 7.
Been the best. I understand. I'm saying Teresa's been the best in a final of anybody on the show. That's
but that doesn't mean she will be the best. That's what they're talking about.
Mean that, but it will be the best. I understand it does not mean that, but it is an indicator of who could be the best in a final.
This is one of those times I'll actually agree with Rob, Devin, because if you look at the female cast, who among that female cast has actually run a final outside of Teresa and Casey? Nani?
Anissa. Nani.
Okay, well, that doesn't count.
I mean, but what are we talking about?
Cam,
in terms of experience,
Cam actually has been solid in the War of the Worlds 2 and Vendettas final. She's
well, we can't count Vendettas. I'll count War of the Worlds 2.
I mean, there was a running portion of Vendettas that she got screwed on because of the Mercenaries twist.
Right, but that's my point with that is the Vendettas one you can't count because there was those janky crap that they pulled in those 2 seasons. But I think what the point that I hear Rob making, and this is how I'm translating it, of this cast, there are way more people that have not run a final than have. And of the people that have, ironically enough, the person with the most final experience currently is Anissa. Nani, to my knowledge, has only run one, and that was free agent.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. And so Casey,
we
Teresa,
can't count Gauntlet 2 as finals experience.
Fair. Duel 2 is really her only real final experience, and
I think
saw that.
I think Teresa clearly has the best. She's been the best in a final out of anybody on the show.
And while that might not translate to this season, it might not translate to this season, but from the history that we have seen, Teresa did, in my opinion, I'll agree with Rob, she performed better in the XS2 final than Casey did. I would even say she and Cam were probably about even between the two of them, between War of the Worlds 2.
It's hard to say War of the Worlds 2. That's a team final, such a different circumstance.
Well, that and they had their broken, they had all the problems, so maybe that's not a good sample either. So we're kind of comparing apples and oranges here.
Well, but I mean, Cam actually does have the most finals experience because she has been Vendettas in War of the Worlds 2. And I hate the Vendettas final more than anybody, but the first part of it, there was a running portion that was you did have to run a pretty long distance.
Yeah, well, one of the points that I just want to come back to it before I forget. Darrell's thing where he said, "Hey, Amber should have gone in and gotten it." I do see his perspective though, because he's looking at it as, "Hey, we have power. We might not ever get power again. You have a chance to get your skull. You might not get another chance. So take your chance when you have it." I have a feeling that if it was a guy's day, Darrell would have said, "Yeah, we're going in." He would have said, "This is my shot. I'm going to get my skull and we're going to do this."
I don't know, man. I just think the way the incentives play out, we're going to keep moving. The people with skulls aren't going to want to go in, and the people that don't have them are going to keep wanting to go in. And when that's the situation, usually it just happens where the people who don't have them get to go in.
Well, what'll be interesting is if you are, when TJ keeps saying steal, does that mean you have to throw in somebody with a skull? Or do you just say, hey, he won the elimination, so you can pick your skull from everybody but anybody that's over here that were the winners today? If the double agents have a skull, you can't take theirs, but you can take any other cast member of the same sex's skull. If that's the case, then that's what I think it is. I think they're going straight island with this. You can just steal it. And so if that is going to be true, and we're just making an assumption here, we'll find out next week, because we will definitely find out next week.
No, it could be a Women's Day again.
True. I just don't think it will be. I think they're ready to get to some drama now, because now that all the skulls are gone on the male side, I would be really interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, but they might want to keep it 5 and 5.
Maybe.
So would the better move have just been for Amber B to get the house to throw in Gabby and her going against Gabby?
It is interesting that whoever the double agent seems to have so much equity in getting the house vote the way they want it to, right?
Totally.
Like, it seems like there's like Fessy, the second episode, Fessy wanted West to go in and it didn't happen, but that's been pretty much like any other time we've gotten that narrative, they've been able to get that done. It seemed like Teresa was just such a consensus vote, though. Like, I'm looking through it now. There's a few Amber M and Michi votes. Or not Amber M and Michi, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong link. They don't actually have that up yet.
Basically, the whole house voted for Teresa. I mean,
because even like Amber M and Gabby brought up, we can get Teresa put in. It seemed like everybody was putting in Teresa besides like Anissa.
Yeah, I think it was a foregone conclusion, so it just is what it is this episode. So I guess we'll see how it plays out later.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think Amber B's going to end up in a not so great spot. I think she's probably going to end up either not getting a chance to go in, which I think is unlikely, or going in against someone that she doesn't want to go in against. I think that's probably what's going to happen.
It's pretty much Lolo. I don't see anybody else that she's got to be like quickening her boots about.
Lola would be quaking in your boots for sure. Nani is still there. Are you going to quake in your boots against Nani? No, but she's tough, kind of.
Yeah, I guess you're right. There's a lot of
Amber.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of weak.
There's a lot of weak
women.
I mean, think it, like the last 4 women we lost have been Teresa, Smashley, Tori, and Natalie, and then Nicole before that. So we've got a lot of like heavy hitters who have gone out either through eliminations or other circumstances. So yeah. I think, I think this was the right play for her, because I think I would be worried about running a final against Casey, but she seems like she's just kind of hitched her ship to that wagon, so you got to run with it. And then, I mean, with this way, Teresa's out, Casey's got her skull, she's not going to want to go in again, and the only person we really have left to worry about is Lolo. And there hasn't been a whisper of Lolo getting put in.
Yeah, there was
today a little bit.
There was a mention, she said.
Well, there was just a mention of her as like a hired gun to take out Teresa. It didn't seem like there was any momentum for her to be the house vote.
Yeah, I think the idea was if Casey told Amber after they saw what the elimination might be that she didn't want it, Lolo was the next one on the list.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that she was going to be the double agent put in, though. There hasn't been any mention of her being the house vote.
No,
it seems like that's been flipping back and forth between Teresa and Amber M.
Because people are afraid that if they vote her in, they could potentially be going against
I think people need to use a little bit more foresight.
Rob, this is the same fucking thing as last season.
Well, I understand we argue about it all the time, but I'm going to make the point every time. We don't know when there's been a listener who's only turning in this episode that has not heard that claim yet.
It's just how, like, that's just how people behave. You know what I mean? Like, we saw it last season, we saw it this season. I also thought partway through the elimination, or when the elimination was over for this, well, I guess real quick, I do agree, now that you call it out, that there are, that is probably the best move for her, throwing in Teresa, because there are a lot of women left that she are definitely beatable for her, right? So like Big T is beatable for her, Nani is beatable for her.
Everybody will Lolo, and then like if Lolo, she just has to luck into the right. Like Lolo can't do a puzzle, and it's the one like last week. Like that's what she's got to hope for.
See, you know who would be like, if there were live odds or like a futures bet to win the final, who would be a sneaky bet, who you would be able to get like absurd odds on, that kind of like super long shot, but would be worth throwing a little bit of money on?
Is it Trace's girl Nani? Like I don't know where you're going with this.
Amber M.
Amber M. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm in Amram. I like what she's brought to the table so far when they've actually given her some screen
Could
time.
she could realistically skate in. It wouldn't be the craziest thing that's ever happened in the show. And
well, let's say Amber B goes up against Lolo, and then who still needs skulls? It's Gabby, Amber M, and Big T and Nani, right?
what if? Yeah, because what if somehow she goes in against Big T? That's winnable for her.
I just think, well, it's just with the finals, we just don't know if it's going to be individuals or pairs. And then, well, why Amber M and not Gabby?
I mean, it could be, but I think if you
Gabby's got
if you looked at the handicapping, don't you think Amber M would be a larger
I think she probably would be, but I could also see them both just being plus an ungodly amount.
Okay, so what I was going to say before I got us on that was a season and a half in, and this is what I thought toward the end of the elimination or after the elimination was over. I really do like the skull twist and how you actually have to go in and win to be able to make a final. I think it really does add a good dynamic to the show. And it took me, I think when I first heard about it, I think when I first heard about it, I was vehemently against it. And I think we've been doing this we've been dealing with the skull twist for going on a year now. I do like it.
I think it just depends on how the cast treats it, and then there's also just a lot of different productions. I think having them be limited is definitely a preferable move. But it seems like it hasn't affected. People still just don't want to go into eliminations this season. We've had Leroy has put himself in, and Fessy's put himself in, and then Casey was fine with getting put in this week. But for the most part, these deliberations are still I need to stay out of elimination, which still makes the episodes interesting. The issue with the last season was just everybody was so passive, and you knew what the elimination matchup was going to be as soon as the episode started.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as long as it stays that way, and people are a little bit more aggressive, and I think there's some bad blood with the cast this season, but it's not there's not Paulie this season who is just going to do anything possible to move the odds in his favor. So I'm curious how if the cast keeps that aggression, and if they do, I'm fine with it. I think it just depends on how it plays out.
Yeah, I think the thing that is going to be interesting from the standpoint so far is we just finished episode 9. There's 10 total episodes left. So how many skulls or how many eliminations do we think we have left to get to 19? If it's 17 episodes with 2-part reunion.
Well, are we sure that the reunion's counted in that? They don't usually count the reunion as part of the season.
I think
they do sometimes. It's very inconsistent.
And 19 episodes is not out of the realm of possibility. Final Reckoning was 20.
Yeah,
but Final Reckoning sucked, and it could have been shorter.
I mean, it could have been shorter if
those were different.
Didn't have people in and out of the Redemption House 5 times.
Different people were in charge at that point in time. I really think it'll be I really think it'll be 2-part reunion, an episode and a half to 2 episode final, and that would put us at
8 skulls episodes. So 6 total left, maybe.
Yeah, and so that's what I think is most likely. Could it go another direction? Sure. Yeah. So if there's 6 left, how many?
3 and 3.
So 3 and 3, and how many do we have now? All 5 for the men.
4 for the women, right?
4 for the women.
No, we have 3 for the women. We need
3 for the women. So there are 2 really. There might only be 1 stealable skull on the female side for this season.
And how many women are left? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 women up. So it's definitely conceivable that you could get left to the side if you're a woman and not get a chance to go in.
So it'd be
it could happen for both sides. Do you think that
it is interesting they went to if they do go to more episodes, because they've had 16 each of every season since War of the Worlds 1.
Yeah, so if they do, wait, do you mean 16 without the final or with the final?
16 with the final, 16 not including reunion.
Yeah, and we're saying 17, right? We're saying 19
what did I
minus
say? It
2
said
episodes for the
19.
reunions.
Okay.
So yeah, so it'll be. So do you think it would be more likely that they would leave people off to the curb without getting a chance to go in, or that they would purge people out?
That is the question, and I think the trailer gave us a hint of what might be coming with that. Do we want to talk about that
I
yet?
still am. I don't know if we need to talk about that because some people don't watch that because they don't want to like know about what's happening.
Yeah, I kind of like vaguely watch it, or like not pay super close attention to it, just because it's a complete spoiler for the whole season. I don't get why they do it. I get why they do it, but they shouldn't do it.
But like every show does it.
Yeah, because they gave to me two. They gave
Survivor
two
doesn't.
really big spoilers. If you have watched the show in the past, you definitely could have picked out two major spoilers in the new trailer they posted that
Pro
aired
tip for
immediately as the
MTV:
episode
when you
ended.
do those trailers, block out the names from the helmets and blur the faces.
Yeah, I wish they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, like that.
You could probably construct 60% of the rest of the season through that trailer.
You can do so much because you can just see like, okay, who's even appearing in the most missions and stuff to see who's like making it far, or like if somebody is in this mission and then like I remember specifically on Dirty 30, after episode 2, it's revealed that Corey and Derek Henry are going into elimination, and then on the next episode on, you see Corey at the mission for like after that elimination, and you're like, well, wonder who's winning this elimination.
Yeah,
So
they used to do that a lot in previous incarnations
well,
of.
they still do it. Blur out the name, block out the names, take like your little black Photoshop thing, block it out, and then blur out the faces, then we won't know who it is.
Do we think that someone's going to try and moving a little bit toward next week for the men? Let's assume that it's a men's day with the qualification that it could definitely be a women's day. But let's say it's a men's day. Do we think one of the guys takes a shot at Devin?
I think Josh is the one to take a shot at. I
would feel more comfortable going after Devin.
I think CT and Corey and Darrell are all like, look, where's Josh hanging out with? Well, let's take a shot at him. Well, I don't want to have to risk. Since we don't know what steal means, bank my money for me.
I think it depends
also,
on
like, Devin, look at it this way too. If you're Darrell or CT, what is Josh beating you
in? He's pretty decent size.
But like he's probably like
I don't know, dude. He weighs a lot. Like, how tall do you think he is? Here, let's see if we can find anything on this guy.
We can't do this height and weight lookup anymore. It takes up like 20 minutes.
No, dude. Like, I think he's close to like weight wise what some of those guys are.
Devin, like, if there's a hall brawl and it's Josh versus Darrell or CT, what's the line set at?
I don't think it's as high as you would guess. I think it's overwhelming if it's Devin though.
But what I'm saying is, like, with Devin's like crafty and he's good at puzzles. Like, there's stuff he could conceivably do better than like he could be favored against Darrell or CT in. Whereas there's nothing I could foresee that Josh would be favored against Darrell or CT.
And that's why I think you kind of have to like look at what the elimination is before you get there.
But like you can't. You don't always have that choice. I think. I don't know. I think that like Trace. If there was a hall brawl, what would you set the odds of CT versus Josh?
He is 6'2", 200.
I mean, that's about the same. CT's probably weighs a little bit more. CT's actually trimmed down, but he still probably weighs a little bit more than that.
I think he's actually bigger than that. He's bigger than that. That's pretty much.
Trace, what are the odds? CT versus Josh hall brawl.
As they stand right now,
I'm setting it at CT minus 10,000.
I think he's got like a 80% chance to win.
I would say, yeah, I would give him between 80 and 85% chance, just because I feel like the shape CT is in this season, he will be faster. The problem is that Josh is so dang big that he could just sit on him if they fell the right way.
So CT, maybe
mean,
I'm the
I
one
would
who's off
say
my
that
rocker there.
We we
I think
I
they
don't
we
would
just
think
said
take
that
you're
he
off
has
your
an
CT
80.
80.
rush.
We just said he has an 80% chance to win. You know what I mean? Like, we think he's the overwhelming favorite for sure.
Yeah.
I just think if you're CT or Darrell, I don't think there's anything you're scared of going against Josh in. Whereas with Devin, like if it's a puzzle or if it's something crafty like agility, like even if it's like if it's the one where you have to hang upside down and like move down the line like that. I mean, Darrell is like the exercise could hurt you in that. Like I think. Whereas if you're going up against Josh in that, like you could give Josh a 2-hour head start, and I wouldn't be that concerned.
This is what it is, though. If they get Devin in something physical, it's over. It's done. He has no chance of beating them.
But Devin
That's
could
what it
beat him
is.
in other things, though.
I know that's what I'm saying, but they
But
still
if
have a
you
chance in
walk
those other
in
things.
and you see Hall Brawl set up, you're going, I want Devin.
Yeah.
I mean, but you don't always have that volition, though. Like I think, like
I
sometimes
think if they have Hall Brawl set up, I mean, when they walked in earlier this season and saw the setup, they were like, it's Hall Brawl.
But no, I'm saying you don't always have that choice in terms of who you want to get. Like as you're walking in, it has to be more premeditated.
So all right, so if we're saying who wins in an elimination or who's better at eliminations, Devin or Josh, I definitely agree that Devin is the favorite. But if we're talking about like how we would go about this if we were Darrell or CT or another stronger male that doesn't have a skull yet, I agree with Chase that or Trace that this is something that you look at the mission or look at the elimination as you go in and try and make your decision from there.
I just think you can say that, but it's not always that easy. Like, what if they had won the mission and they need to orchestrate the House vote?
I know, so that's what I'm agreeing with you, Rob. So that's why I'm saying, like, if we can't do any of that, yeah, we put in Devin.
Yeah. No, we put in Josh. We don't put in Devin.
Oh, excuse me. We put in Josh. Yeah, excuse me.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so that's what
the only way that you can manipulate Devin into it is if you are the House vote and you've already got like a handshake agreement with the double agents and you have a hand signal that says this is who I want, and the double agents agree to give you that team. That's the only way you can kind of do it on the fly.
Yeah, I'm curious how
So
it's going
you
to play
have to
out.
take
I
the
don't.
risk.
If you're the double agents, I don't see what in the world advantage you have in putting Josh or Devin down in that circumstance.
All
I would agree with you, but there are people playing this game more about getting their friends' skulls rather than thinking long term.
Doesn't think the LCT have that many friends though.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be that they're just, well, I guess real quick, all I was trying to say is that I think the easiest win, if you grouped that, the easiest win for them for a skull would be to go against
Josh.
Devin in something physical. Devin in something physical. That's the easiest win that they could get, right? All right. So now what we were talking about? We were talking about Darrell and CT in their position in the House. It really does seem that people are just trying to keep them out of positions of power and not let them get a skull, right? That seems like what's going on, and trying to keep them on the benches.
Yeah, we got an email about that, and I watched the after show last week after we talked. I usually try to watch it before. I wasn't able to watch this one before. This one didn't have as much stuff in it, but
let's do that now. Do you want to read it, Rob?
I can read it. First, she asked about something about my Twitter account. I already replied to her about that. But she was also saying how she this is Marie Lily, by the way. Hi, Lily. She follows a few challengers on Patreon that do episode recaps. And then Cam and Leroy have...
Just read the email. Do you have it?
I'm reading it right now, yes.
All right,
Cam and Leroy have said that CT is right there trying to keep him out of elimination. They've said this in multiple recaps that what isn't being shown is that their strategy for CT, which is to keep him out of elimination and to keep him with Big T so she can anchor him in a potential final. Cam has also said that CT won in that elimination. Josh won in episode 8. He asked Kyle and Cam, but to give it to him, but then Cam said no. And then a clip of that, them talking about that. And then another clip of them saying they're keeping CT out of eliminations, and then also a clip from the Challenge Aftermath. Everybody should be watching the Challenge Aftermath, by the way. Devin's very good as the host. But yeah, so she was saying that Cam and Leroy were trying to keep CT out, and then also to keep him with Big T. I know that you can try to pull that off. I just think eventually, like, they win a mission, and it foils that plan. But like, I mean, he could win a mission on a Women's Day, and never win one on a Men's Day.
I think CT's going to get a skull. I think he will.
I just think of it just works out where everybody gets to go in. I just am still skeptical of that.
Yeah. Sadly, since I saw the mid-season trailer, I don't know for sure that he gets a skull, but my assumption is he would be based on an event that happened. So we'll see.
Do you think we're going to lose people, or do you think they're going to have a?
I don't think we're losing anybody. I think it just plays down the road, and then we.
How do you think it'll play out though, so that everyone gets it?
Well, like when we get down, so like let's say when we get down to 6 and 6, one person doesn't have a skull, everybody else has one. They just one person who doesn't have one goes in, and then they take it.
Mm-hmm.
And then nobody who has one wants to go in because
they have a ticket to the final and they could lose it. So.
Yeah, and then the person who doesn't have one, of course, is trying desperately to go in at that point because that's their one shot to get it. So I think the way the incentives play out is that's just how it works.
Yeah, I think on the male side, if we have how many men left in the game?
We have
total?
9 men, 9 women.
Yeah, so if we have 3 more eliminations, then that means we're going to lose 2 of those people. So that's down to 7.
3 more eliminations would mean we lose. Oh, 3 more eliminations like in total.
Well, no, 6 total, but 3 for the men.
Then we lose 3 men.
If we make well, you got to let me finish here. So 2 are going to go home on the first 2. So that is going to drop you to 7, which means for the final elimination, 5 men are going to have a skull and 2 are not. Are they going to want to throw both people who don't have skulls in? My hunch is they're going to throw Devin in the final. That way they can ensure that only one person who's left steals someone else's skull that they throw in. So I think they're going to manipulate the house vote to where, is it possible CT won't go in? Sure, but I think the likelihood of him not going in one of the next 3 eliminations is very low. He will find a way to get in somehow.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to get a chance. Talking through this, I think
that's how it works out.
Everyone's going to go in elimination.
I think it maybe in future seasons, eventually they pull the rug out from under us with that. For this season, I don't think that's how it's going to work.
Do you think the skulls will be back next season?
I mean,
Is this here to stay?
I'm still not all the way in on them. I think just the way it's played out this season has been better. I also just don't think there hasn't been a house vote yet where somebody has said they want to go in. I'm curious if that starts happening, how that affects the storyline progression on the show. You don't want to be like Champs versus seasons were so boring where every single star is just begging to be thrown into elimination so they can leave.
We saw that later in the season in Total Madness, where people started to say, "I want to go in the house vote." So it'll be interesting to see.
Oh, the house vote specifically. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, that happened. It happened with Corey, right? Didn't Corey want to do it?
Corey happened I'm just trying to think of when it started. I'm trying to think of the first instance of it.
Maddie. It happened with Maddie. She wanted to do it.
Yeah, Bananas, Corey, Maddie.
Tori put herself in.
Tori, correct?
Tori was the first one. She was the 5th elimination. She put herself in. Everybody prior to
that. Did it happen before that?
Everybody prior to that had just been voted in because Jay was getting put in constantly, and then on the women's side you had Jen and Ashley who got put in.
It's crazy looking at Total Madness that Big T made it through 9 episodes.
Yeah, Big T knows
and
what
she only was gone because she got injured.
Yeah, Big T knows what she's doing.
She's got the hey man, if this was a season without Red Skulls, I would have predicted she made the final because that's no one would want.
Like if somebody has enough guile in their game to be able to just make a final.
What odds would I have to give you for Big T to win the show?
I don't see why is Amber such a significant favorite over Big T.
Just physical ability.
I don't know. Big T can sneak her way in. I don't know.
Big T to win a final is an astronomical odd up there with Anissa.
But once there's that many of them, they can't all have odds that are that bad.
I think Big T has better odds to win a final than Anissa.
Yeah. I mean, Rob, all right, let's pretend that we are doing an all nonsense season of the challenge and it's nothing but the worst competitors that have ever been on the show. So you've got on the male side, you've got Danny, Big Easy, the guy who cried and left on Battle of the
Brandon.
Exes too. Like you just start listing off.
Fat Nate from Battle of the Exes, one of my all-time favorites.
You could put Vinny on there. Oh, probably can't because of his legal issues and what he did to
I thought you
Mandy.
meant Johnny's cousin, Vinny.
No, Vinny Pig. He's fine. He's not bad. But if you look at the female side and you go, okay, these 3 females make the final: Siobhan, Anissa, and Big T. Who you going with?
I'll pick Big T. Siobhan's last.
I would honestly pick Big T out of those 3.
Yeah,
maybe Anissa.
I think Big T and Anissa's close. I think Siobhan's like clear last actually of that threesome. Siobhan's not.
Indeed.
That
would make a great episode. We should do a bonus episode of casting an all nonsense cast.
Is it all nonsense or all losers? Like all the worst.
The losers tend to be nonsense.
I feel bad putting Anissa in like the all-time worst category. She's just bad in finals. She's fine in other stuff.
She's bad in finals, sure. I mean, but that's why I say it's
Siobhan's bad at everything. Anissa's not bad at everything. Anissa's just not good in finals.
Yeah.
So
I don't think Anissa is a bad cast member, and I know I've said this a million times. I actually think Anissa is great to be on the cast, but they cast her knowing that she's probably not going to win.
I mean, her quote at the end of this episode, I already told it, that killed me. I was dying from that.
Oh yeah,
you think
the Corey talk?
Do you think she thinks she can win or no?
I don't know.
I think she's smart enough to know she can't.
Yeah, I
think she's. But like, I think you put yourself in as good a situation as you can, and then you just kind of hope things break away. I think she's smart enough to know to do that, and like we say, she can't win. You never know. You never know how these things could play out.
That's very true. I think that she's smart enough.
The total minus final last season ended up just being 1 versus 1 on the female side at the last leg, and like when that happens, who knows?
And I don't think she can't win. I think it's extremely unlikely that she can win.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think she even knows that as well. Like you're saying, she does the show because they pay her. I mean, she gets money for this. It helps propel whatever outside thing she's working on. She's hosting the Official Challenge podcast. It gives her other opportunities outside of the show. So if they call her, of course she's going to say yes. She'd be dumb not to, unless she had she turned down a few seasons because she was in school, and she wisely stayed in school. But she comes on wanting to win, but deep down she knows, hey, if it's me against Casey and Jenny, I'm probably not going to win this, but I'm still going to try because anything can happen.
Yeah, I think that you guys you do kind of need somebody with a little bit of producer know-how on this cast. I do think this episode specifically is where you miss a Wes who can kind of just help the producers.
He can be the storyteller of what's going on.
Yeah, he just helps to move the story forward. I wish they'd actually gone to Anissa a little bit more this episode to kind of give them somebody with a bit more TV experience to help move things along.
Yeah. I will say, though, from a confessional standpoint, there were several great one-liners. Like Darrell had a couple really good zingers. The Anissa one was incredible. The Nam one legitimately almost made me lose it. I started laughing out loud so hard because it just came out of nowhere. We've seen nothing from Nam of emotion about his performance, and all of a sudden he goes, "You motherfucker," and just they cut him off, of course, and it was just so quick that it was jarring and hilarious. So they did a good job.
By the way, taking shots at the dude's intelligence, he's got a mechanical engineering degree and just speaks, I think, at least 2 or 3 languages or something. I think he knows what he's doing.
Didn't she applaud his intelligence after he won?
Yeah.
No, well, I don't think she said that she was surprised by how well he did, how much he knew.
Did she?
That's what she seemed to convey.
I thought she meant, maybe I misheard it, but I thought she was conveying it as people were surprised by how he did, but she said something they don't realize how smart he actually is.
Okay, maybe I'm not giving her credit then.
Yeah, but I also will say this, and this episode is still kind of bearing it out. I'm still waiting for the Lolo meltdown because it's got to be coming, right, Rob? I mean, you remember what you saw.
She's already been very difficult to deal with. I think for her meltdown, I'm not expecting her to go smashing the walls and stuff.
No, I don't expect that, but I'm expecting a lot of yelling.
But she's already yelled.
Well, we saw that with Anissa.
She's already been terrible to deal with. I think that's already happened. It probably is happening. They aren't showing it for whatever reason. But I think my basis against her, I just don't think like she's a great athlete, but there's just other connective tissue it takes to be great at the show, and I don't think she has any of that.
I mean, if this was a season without the Skulls, I feel like the entire cast would be throwing her in every episode right now.
I don't know for that. I don't know if they're that smart. I think they'd be worried about her coming back and like attacking her, which barely ever happens.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things where, I mean, she's easily the biggest physical threat in a final, but at least with this format, they could theoretically freeze her out if they wanted to.
She's going to get a shot here to go in, right? Because we're saying that there are, let's say, 3 women eliminations
We're
left.
assuming 3 and 3 right now.
Yeah, and how many women are left without a skull? 1,
5.
2,
5.
5. So if all women without a skull go in, remaining, she will be able to get a chance, and it's kind of playing out for her pretty well. For the same reason that we said that Amber B made the right episode or right decision this episode, because there are a lot of weaker women left, right? It's Amber B, Amber M, Gabby, Lolo, Nani, and Big T. Like she's the favorite, like far and away.
Yeah,
every single.
And you know what's crazy
is it just has to be something janky.
Well, it's because of if you look at the DQs, the fact that of what we're assuming will probably be 3 female eliminations, 2 of those 3 will be for skulls. There's only 3 women with skulls, as we talked about earlier. So that means we're going to have 2 eliminations at least where people without skulls probably go at it. And the only way to keep Lolo out of it is if you put someone with a skull in against whoever is left with Lolo to freeze her out.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I think we're forecasting a little bit here.
We're forecasting, but I think it's a legitimate forecast to think about, because the fact that we're assuming if it's 4 eliminations, then her odds of getting in probably go higher. So, I mean, I think, like you said, Rob, almost everyone is going to get a shot. There may be 1 man or 1 woman, but I don't think we're going to see 1 man and 1 woman get frozen out. I think that the people with skulls are just not going to want to throw each other in unless they have a really good plan to get rid of them.
Yeah, and I think what it is that it's likely that she's going to be able to go in, and the women that she's most likely to go in against are very beatable for her.
It makes you wonder why they didn't put her in against like a Natalie or a Smashley. You know what I mean? Like the fact that Solo is still hanging around, all the women without skulls, I don't see who she's losing to unless, like Rob said, it's something extremely janky.
That's just so rarely how they think.
It's really tough to predict, though, that the very strong women that went out would have actually gone out, right?
Well, I mean, a lot of them just went out for not even game. Like Nicole got hurt, Natalie had to leave for a medical issue, and like Ashley, I mean, she lost to Natalie and Cam. It's not like she lost to Cream Puffs.
It's difficult to predict. All right, let's do our power rankings really quick. So let me see. I'm almost there. Okay. So for this week, I'll go first since I haven't gone first in a while. For the men, I had Fessy, Darrell, CT last week. I will. Let's not do them in first. I had Casey, Lolo, and Cam last week. I'm going to stick with that. I feel really good about that, especially now that Casey has a skull. But now that we talked through, it pretty much comes down to who do I think is better in a final, Casey or Lolo? And now that we talked through who Lolo could potentially go against to get into the final, I think she has a good chance of getting in the final. But all right, so I'm going to go Casey, Lolo, Cam for the women. For the men, I'm going to stay the same. I'm going to go Fessy, Darrell, CT. I'm going to be almost completely unchanged, but I'm going to go Casey, Fessy, Casey, Fessy, Lolo for overall. And last week I had Fessy, Casey, Darrell. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit overall.
Interesting. I guess I'll go ahead and jump in. So on the male side, nothing's going to change. I still think Darrell, CT, and Fessy are the top three on the male side. On the female side, I'm going to reluctantly change it up a little bit, I think. I'm going to go Casey, Lolo, Cam. And the reason Lolo has gone from unranked to number 2 is just us talking through the scenarios of how she can get a skull. And if she gets one and she's in the final, it'd be really hard for me to root against her winning, like in the odds.
To root
like,
or to bet?
Like to bet. Like it would be really hard to bet against Lolo if she makes the final. Just physically, I mean, the puzzles can jack you up. You know, you could fall and hurt your leg. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can happen. But in terms of like the physicality and endurance of a final, like Lolo is easily the best athlete. But I would put her 1 if it wasn't for I don't know how mentally strong she will be in the final. And maybe she'll kick into athlete mode and just dominate. Who knows? But I got to go Casey, Lolo, Cam based on the odds that I'm seeing of how this is playing out. And then overall, I would go Darrell, CT, Casey in that order.
So you actually had Darrell, CT, Leroy last week, and you said Darrell, CT, Fessy this week. Is that what you want? Or do you want Leroy? You want Darrell, CT, Fessy? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing with Leroy right now that is bothering me is I know they don't edit the challenge like Survivor. Like based on the edit we have right now, you could throw a hat in the air and everything spill out and I still wouldn't really know who would win. You know, like conceivably
we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think we'll have to see how it plays out. The only person that's getting an edit that looks close to how they edit winners in the challenge is Cam, but for some reason, I just still have a hard time believing she will win against who she might be running against. She could. I'm not saying she won't do it. I'm just saying if she's running against Lolo and Casey, it's hard for me to pick Cam as the best of those 3.
All right, Rob.
All right. I'll go Darrell, CT, Leroy. I actually thought about moving CT ahead of Darrell. But then for the female side, I'll go Cam. Having moved Teresa out of the top 3 hurts me so much, but she's gone, so I can't have her there anymore. I'll go Amber
your
B.
3 women are shaky ice.
I think Cam's pretty solid ice.
Well, outside of Cam. But Amber B, like, I don't know, Rob.
I'll put Amber B 2, Casey 3, reluctantly.
Woo, Amber above Casey.
All right, Rob, can I interest you in a Casey versus Amber B bet?
We've discussed this. This is specifically just to win the show. Once we show up for the final, we can talk.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Well, I don't want to bet. What would we be betting on now?
One of them might not make the final for a
One of them winning.
What would we be betting on now?
So whoever, it's only if they win the show.
Do I get odds on Amber B?
No, you think she's higher?
I don't know, bro. I'm much closer on it than you are. I'm not going to just bet. I don't want to just bet 50-50 on it.
Well, what odds do you want?
Give me like plus 200.
No. You think she's better than her?
Well, you laughed at the assertion, so you should be giving me odds.
Devin, I would say 2-1 or 2 plus 200 on Amber to beat Casey is a safe bet for you to pick Casey. That would be my opinion.
I know that we think that, but he's the one that has her ranked higher. So let's do plus 150.
I don't want to do plus 150.
All right, we'll talk about this offline.
Yeah.
Who's it for your? Who's it? Go ahead.
Before we go ahead and finish your thought, I have a topic of conversation that I want to cover that popped into my head yesterday.
Well, I still need to give my overall, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Your overall.
Yeah. I'll move Cam ahead of Darrell. I'll go Cam, Darrell, CT.
I just don't think Cam's going to win.
Well,
I
we'll
just
see what
don't see
happens.
it.
I just don't with Casey. I just don't see it. I think she gets.
Why?
I just think they would like portray her in a more like primary
No.
character light if she was running the
No.
show.
That's not how the challenge works.
That's
Okay,
not
but
how
like
they
Jenny
edit the
got way
show.
more airtime last season than Casey's gotten so far this season.
That's not how the show works.
But that's from the
Well, I
track record
think
that
the
I
thing
have
with
established so
Casey,
much.
here's the thing. The challenge is first a reality drama show and a second a competitive show.
But like Jenny
People often get that mixed up. And last year, Casey was involved in multiple storylines that involved Nani being a hot mess and a lot of stuff like
that was
that.
pretty much it. And
Whereas
even
this,
that one, the focus was on Bailey or Nani more so than her even. Like I think, and
right,
like
but she
Jenny
was
got a lot
still,
of story last season for somebody who doesn't get involved in drama.
How?
but this
I don't know.
season,
She was involved in a lot of drama. Jenny? She was involved in a decent amount, especially before they completely.
I mean, last season's hard to judge just because of what happened, but I think
yeah, with what happened,
she
it's hard
got
to...
stories, and she won.
Yeah, because she was heavily involved with everything that was going on with Dee, and Dee was pretty much the main character.
But there was
of the
that,
season
but there
before
was
they cut her
also
out.
like she got stuff with Melissa. She had like rivalries with Rogan and Corey.
But see, you cannot judge the winner based on the stories that are edited in for you. They have had many seasons where the winner had either a really bad story or next to no
What would that be?
real thing. I would throw Fresh Meat 2 with Landon
that was
winning.
so long ago, dude. And Landon got plenty of story that season. That's not
not compared to everyone else. Wes and Kenny grabbed 80% of that screen time.
Yeah, and then Landon's portrayed as like the dude who doesn't play the alliances, which is how you should play the game and win.
Right, but that was his story, but he maybe got 5 minutes of screen time most episodes until it got to the end where no one was left.
Super long ago, and then we'll also have to look at that when we do it.
You can't pull that was super long ago.
It was super long ago.
They still edit the show the same damn way now they did back then.
Okay, but we talk about people are different. We're differently in charge of Final Reckoning than now. We're not going to say Fresh Meat 2 is on a different animal.
Final Reckoning, though, and Vendettas were produced by the Bad Girls Club producers. Every other season from Gauntlet 2 on had Justin Booth in charge, orchestrating all the stuff going on. So the way they edit the show is the way the executive producer tells them to. And so as the executive producer, he's telling them, here's how the show should be edited.
I would be interested to see, someone should do this, to see what the, list all the winners per season, right? And then sort that in ascending order of confessionals, right? So
we could do that actually. So they have confessional databases. We could do that pretty easily.
That's true. That would be interesting.
Well, yeah, but we'd have to segment out the winners though. That would be interesting. Hard. Who would you? Well, I mean, I just don't want to spend the time doing it. Who would you guess would be the lowest?
30-30 with Camilla would be. Well, no, I don't think it'd be Turbo. I think 30-30 with Camilla would be. She basically added it out of the second half of that season. And Jordan, and even Jordan, that season was a really weird one. I don't think you could put that because Camilla
that
has
was
her.
Also a Bad Girls Club producer season. People forget that. Yes, they produced that whole trilogy.
Are you sure? I thought they just came in for Vendettas. And
nope, they were assisting on Dirty 30 and Vendettas and Final Reckoning.
The issue with the challenge in doing that is each season is like with War of the Worlds, so you have 4 winners. You have some seasons that have 1, some seasons that have 2. Back in the day, you'd have some that have more than 4. And then you also have situations like in 30-30 where you have Camilla with her horrific tirade against Leroy, and then you also have Jordan with the stuff against Jemmy, which would be in any other season it would be the absolute worst look anybody has on the entire season. So you have the 2 winners that also are involved in very controversial situations that we don't know how that's going to affect how they're portrayed on the show. But if you go back and track it, like they're at least going to want, like I think if you're any reality TV producer, you're going to want the people that watch your show to understand the overall storyline that happened based on them watching the entire season, and for the most part to like be satisfied with the winner of the show. You don't want an unsatisfied.
No. See, yeah, they don't do that though. Yeah, they do not do that. So what they want to do is they want to put out the most entertaining product, and this is, Trace and I have come to an agreement on this. So Survivor does what you're talking about, right? What the challenge
But
does
I think
is
it's even different than what I'm talking
Let me
about.
finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. And what the challenge does is they put forward the most entertaining product that they can. And I think that's the difference between how the two shows are edited.
But I'm not even saying that in regards to, because Survivor does edit the winners differently in that it's not just a satisfying winner. They also want the winner to be portrayed in like a way that suits the winner of Survivor, which is very different than what suits a winner of the challenge. Like, I mean, because like you don't have to be portrayed as a political or a social mastermind to win at the challenge. A lot of times we'll actually go against that.
Yeah. But see, if you start looking historically at the way the challenge is edited, they pick the best stories and that's what they focus on. And yeah, the winner is important because it's part of the gameplay and strategy. But I would argue that if you go back and you go from, I would peg it around the Ruins is really the first season where they're starting to edit really well the way Devin and I are talking about. Because the majority of those stories involve people that don't win. And then the other main story is JEK or just a-holes.
Okay, but like, well, you have the main stories that are happening. Who do you go to for confessionals? What do you have them talking about in their confessionals? Like, what is the storyline you're portraying in regards to that? Like, it's not just you're portraying the best stories. There's other filler aspects to that you can mess around with and choose who you want.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rob, you have Darrell as the favorite to win this season. Do you think he's being edited in the way that you think they edit winners?
That's more so me just picking on his ability, and then we'll see what happens storyline wise.
All right, we'll see.
He has been getting mixed in confessional wise a lot more often than just a random person.
No, I think he's been like wallpaper this season.
I mean, as somebody who keeps track of the confessions, he gets a lot more than people who just aren't involved in the story.
He has a lot of 1- and 2-liner confessions, Devin, but he's not really involved in the story per se because he has completely stayed out of the drama. He might be watching the drama unfold, but he's really not involved in it. He's had a couple moments where they cut to him having a political conversation in the bubble, but the rest of his screen time is pretty much relegated to 1- and 2-sentence confessions 3 or 4 times a show.
So, do you have the confessional counts for 3 this episode?
I could get them in 1 second. He had 7 this episode if you were curious, but I can pull that up now.
Well, this was an episode where he was
he won, yeah,
one of the winning teams.
Yeah.
What is it? Do you have it through last week?
I have it. Yeah, I have it through last week, and then we could add in the ones from today if we wanted to.
Who is it through last week?
Some of these are Cam actually was leading through last week. The issue is the way I do the scoring, it does get a little mixed up with how it's set up. Like because I have it set I have confessional set as miscellaneous part of the scoring, but you also give points for getting kicked off the show. So there's like a little bit of like mix up there. He is at. I might actually not be able to have this pulled up right now. Give me 2 minutes if you guys have anything.
Okay, we can clip it. So, yeah, the way that they're editing the show this season, I think we have a decent sample size, but we're not big enough yet to see where this is really going because now that we're down to 18 cast members total, you're going to start to see who's getting most of the confessional and screen time moving forward. You can pretty much take the storylines in the first half of the season for the most part on the challenge and throw them away halfway through. I mean, even when we have talked about these past seasons of the show, like think through the stuff like Fresh Meat. What was the main story on Fresh Meat? Coral and Evan dominate. Then they go home because of the injuries. And then there's no story really after that.
So I have it through last week. So this is how it goes from top to bottom. Cam, Devin, CT, Big T, Anissa, Kyle, Corey, Fessy and Leroy tied, Teresa, Josh, Lolo, Nani, Darrell and Casey tied, Nam, Gabby, Amber M, Amber B.
So he's in the very, very bottom.
Correct, with Casey.
That's true. I thought he had more, honestly. Maybe I'm just misevaluating that then. Hey, I should move him down.
It's interesting to see that Big T has that many, right? That's nuts.
Yeah. No, she's entertaining. Like, that's the thing. She was involved when she Remember when they won the challenge and she was doing all the stuff in the bubble and playing the queen? Like, dude, she got tons of screen time there in those first couple episodes.
I just even think, Devin, like you talk about it, like when we're watching The Island, that they'll continually mix in how Evelyn says she's never gonna go with the guy. She's doing that stuff. Like there's foreshadowing happening.
Yeah.
To say that they're not going to foreshadow the winner in some fashion or another, to me, is crazy.
The only thing that I feel like that they are really laying heavy on the foreshadowing is you can't trust the Big Brother people, because it seems like once an episode, Darrell or someone says, hey, you can't trust those Big Brother people. So there's got to be some big thing that's going to happen with the Big Brother Alliance before the end of the season.
Keep building up Amber B.
It could be. I don't know.
What do you mean?
We'll just have to figure it out.
Building up Amber B. She was like dead last.
Well, even last episode she had a lot of screen time last week.
No, she
had a decent amount of screen time. Yeah.
Her and Amber Ember had some like feud boiling that never going anywhere.
Cumulative through last week, she was dead last in the house after last.
I'm saying last episode specifically, it seemed like they were trying to build up a feud with her and Amber, and they went nowhere.
It came up a little bit this week, but not as much as you would think, especially because they showed it on the previously on before the episode started. It was more of Gabby and Amber B than it was
moved on to
Amber M and Abby B. Yeah. All right. Do we have anything else?
I forgot the other topic I was going to bring up, so maybe it'll come to me and we'll talk about it next week. It's not like time sensitive, but it's related to this season, and we're
already an hour and 15 into this, which I know is short for us, but it's still like almost twice as long as the show runs.
Yeah. No, I think we're good.
All right. Thank you for listening, everyone. Listener email is thechronicles@gmail.com. Look out for this special episode, which comes out early next week. There's a slight chance that it may be our first video episode, but with our luck, when it comes to technical difficulties, I wouldn't.
If I'm involved,
I don't think it's strong.
Not better on working well now.
Hey, but now that we're using a different email address, at least you're getting into the meeting the first time now.
Is this when I can put a shirt on for when we're on calls now?
Yes, you have to. You are not allowed to pace, and you must wear clothes.
I wear clothes. It's not a shirt, but that's disappointing.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.